Welcome to the Pineapple Perspective. I'm your host, Troy Hooper, and this is another special episode. I got to stop saying that. I say it every time. But we are at the National Restaurant Association Show 2025. We are kicking off this week's show in the podcast booth with the Pineapple Perspective and some amazing guests. And this next guest is no exception. This is Amy Hom. Amy, how are you?
I'm great. I'm lucky to be here with you.
Oh, come on. We're
infamous Troy Hooper.
We are very lucky to have you. Amy, we start every Pineapple Perspective show off by talking about one question because we want your perspective on what does hospitality mean to you?
Connecting and changing lives. And that may sound funny and phony, but it is not. You can literally change somebody's life in our industry.
I believe you because I've seen you and I've followed you and I know your history and you mean that. And actually, that's what you do for a living, I think. We'll get into that into the show. But where did that idea come from? Where did that shortest answer ever, most impactful answer I've ever heard, where did that come from? Why is that what you believe hospitality means?
People have transformed my life that way. And so it's just transformative. You can be transformative in this industry.
Give me some examples. Think about an employee. Well, your life of it could be one example, but maybe a life of an employee that made a meaningful change. Give us an example, because some people may not really understand what you're really meaning.
Oh my gosh, there's a laundry list. My Botox is working well. I'm older, so I've been doing this a while. But one of the things I love is writing thank you cards in the restaurants. And we had an incident where we lost a team member and the mom called me and she said, "You're Amy." And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "My son had your card on a refrigerator for like 3 years. He was so proud that you gave." He was a dishwasher for one of the companies I worked for. And so it's just building the confidence, letting people know that they can go from a dishwasher to a Troy Hooper. Like, people just don't realize that there is this huge, sexy path and you can get there and you can own your own company in this industry. And I think that that's been lost, especially during the COVID years. I don't always like to talk about it, but we did lose a little sexiness in the industry and now it's coming back. And I think it's up to us. We have a responsibility and on our shoulders to bring others along. So there's just so many cool stories of, messages I get. I coach about 5 managers a week in other restaurant chains. And they'll post and they'll do really cool things. And one of them just got promoted to GM. And that's the cool part.
Yeah. You can go from busser to Troy Hooper, the CEO, because I was a busser.
Are you really? I know Greg and some of these other guys were, but it's cool.
I was a busser at Bennigan's first.
Bennigan's.
Right?
And I was
coming back, by the way. Bennigan's is coming back. I think there's one in Dubai. I've got to connect.
We all need to take a road trip to Dubai.
You got to do it. Yeah, absolutely. Look, I've always said, you and I are cut from the same cloth in a lot of ways, and that's why I'm excited about the remainder of this conversation. But I've always said to the employees, you never know what is happening at that table. Is this the last meal that they have with grandma? And they don't know it and you don't know it.
Yeah.
But will they look back a year from now and go, "Oh my gosh, the last meal we had when we went to visit grandma in the home city because we've moved away." That sounds morbid and sort of, heavy, but it's true. You never know what those moments are or what they'll represent later. So give the employee the empowerment, the tools, the knowledge, the freedom to connect authentically, to support that experience. Because what I tell my staff all throughout my careers, we are in the memory business. We make memories. We facilitate moments that are memories, and act like that. Mm-hmm. You're not serving food. You're not bringing drinks. You're not just feeding people in a transactional environment.
You're creating an experience.
You're creating an environment.
And you have to specialize it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Amy, talk a little bit about your history. Not this long, drawn-out bios, but people may not know who Amy Hom is, where she comes from, and how you've built this career based on culture and connection and building memories at the table.
Gosh, I'm an OG from St. Louis. Started off at McDonald's like many of us. Crew leader, all the things. And I got to where I am now by having a lot of advocates and mentors and ambassadors. And I think that is super important with what we do now. So being in your circle and a lot of the people that we all hang out with, it's critical for me. If I have a question or something's going on in the industry, we just reach out. But my path to getting here Listen, it takes a lot of grit and it's a lot of work, and you got to focus and you got to dial in, and it's full time. It's full-time career, but I've loved every single moment of it.
Talk a little bit about some of the positions you've held. You don't be shy, don't be humble. Amy's a big deal, okay? I mean, come on. But, you've been in operations, you've been heavily focused on building teams and teams that perform really, really well. I don't necessarily want to call it turnaround all the time, but you've gone into businesses and helped them really expand their capacity to be excellent in customer service, in building community with employees, et cetera. Just give people a quick list of some of those roles and places you've been.
Gosh, I was at California Pizza Kitchen for a long time. I started off at Houlihan's, like you were Bennigan.
Houlihan's.
I don't think everybody remembers.
One of my dad's late-night haunts in a Houlihan's, for sure.
I had the best GM there. I'd say, show me how the light bulbs, but how do you look? What are the details? What's the host stand look like? I just the best mentors there. Was there growing up. I call those my college years. And then I did a stint with Wolfgang. Very strange. Then went to Red Robin, then went to Wolfgang, then went back to Red Robin. There's a whole having cocktails over that.
There's a thread here, though. There's a thread of culture. There's a lot of culture in those branches.
And then I took a leap and I went to Sweet Green, and then moved on and did some consulting for a while. Went to Reef Technology, crazy stint there. And I took some time to make sure I was with a brand that really fit my personality and what they needed and what I needed and what my strengths were. So I'm at Barcelona Wine Bar now, and, holding roles, VP of Ops or COOs, or I was a CPO for a while, and just understanding that we're in the people business. And development matters, and getting people from the dishwasher to the C-suite is important, and sitting down and listening to what people need. And sometimes it's like, hey, I just haven't had any time for myself. I need to go get a facial, or I need to go work out. And so that's on their development plan. Or I need to go learn more about financials so that I can have a different seat at the table. How do I get there and make sure my voice is heard? All of that matters. But if we're not, our job is to bring people along. And we've increased retention by 30% just in the last 6 months on development planning, heart checks. We use GChat, and a lot of people use Slack. We have a celebrations chat, so we don't miss a birthday or an anniversary, or somebody did something really cool in a restaurant. So it connects the whole restaurant community at Barcelona. But we've had that in past lives as well. So it's just fun to kick that off in companies.
As you're hitting these highlights, I'm hearing all of the problems that individual restaurant owners, small group owners, small emerging chain owners cry and complain about all the time. Attraction, retention, problem solving, firefighting within, infighting, complaining, getting teams to perform, do the script.
Want to
have
do it.
A clean uniform.
Want to do it.
Want to do these things.
Want to do it.
How, do you convince these brands that you've worked for or consult, or these leaders, same example, how do you convince them to do what sounds like the hard work, sounds like extra work, sounds like an investment, right? An investment of time, an investment of new resources or tools, an investment of paying employees to show up to meetings, gatherings, team building events. Mm-hmm. How do you convince them that this is the path to solve all of those problems?
It's the power of influence and knowing that it's already proven to work. And so my motto, and people that have worked with me, I'm easy on people, tough on standards. I will love you all day long, but I expect you to execute at a high standard. And when you do, you'll get recognition and you get celebrated. It's actually that simple. Some people overthink it. Some people don't understand that it's actually extra time to do this work. It's not just going in 9 to 5 and doing your role, or going into a restaurant, working a shift and leaving. It's leaving with impact, leaving with influence, and follow-up. Follow-up's a big thing. But man, when somebody does something really cool for the organization, or for a guest, just a guest, or their team, whether it's a powwow, pre-shift, like whatever it is, you got to call that out. You got to fill their bucket. And the other thing is like gamification of training. That's a big deal right now. So we added points, and now we have a swag shop, which only helps us. So like they can get a Perón, and you can Perón, or wine glasses, or a cool Barcelona, bag or something. And the teams love to do their training. We're rolling that out right now so that they get the swag.
That's awesome. A swag shop for the staff. That's a very unique thing. As you're talking about it, I think of the following. you can either choose as an owner, operator, COO, GM, whatever level you're at and running in this business, you can either choose the hard path, in my opinion, which is all of the unpleasant, unfun, always repeating yourself, chasing down the problems.
Well, we are chief repeating officers. I do agree with that.
Yeah. Or so what I'm saying is it's not about, you're going to do the same amount of work. You're going to spend the same amount of time. It's just, what do you focus on? What do you actually work on? Do you want to do the things that are more interesting and fun and fulfilling? And in the end, you have great retention, greater attitude, team and community. Talk a little bit about building community within the store or within the organization.
So I am a big 5 Dysfunctions of a Team leader. Peter Lencioni, like his book, I give that book out all the time. If you don't have trust, it goes sideways. If you do have trust, you can then have, healthy conflict conversations, be honest with each other. You hurt my feelings. What did I do, Troy? Let's talk about it. Let's leave the room aligned. At the very top of that is gaining results very quickly. And so if you've got the triangle built, if you've got somebody on your team you can't trust, you actually have to remove them pretty quickly. But once you build that rockstar team, you can move really, really fast. It takes a little time to do that, especially when you start off in a new business. But how do you do it? Because you have the people piece and the culture piece too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to focus on the right things, and you can't. Here's the one little tip: is nothing ever slides. You never let that moment get by. That snarky comment or
the
rolling
accountability
up the eyes or, hey, we'll get them next time because they chose to fail or chose to avoid or chose to ignore whatever that mandate or that standard was. And that's at the executive level all the way down. And the other thing that I do is that I give permission, I encourage, and I actually did this with my team yesterday. I require them to hold me accountable. Guys, don't let me get away with it.
Two-way street. I love
promise, that. Yeah, if I make a promise that I'm going to do a certain thing by a certain day, or I'm going to get you that tool, or I'm going to get you that information, and if I quote get too busy, don't give me an excuse by saying, Troy, I know you're really busy. If you can get around to it. No, Troy, you said by this day and this time we would have this. Hold me accountable. And that's managing up and teaching your teams to manage up, manage across, manage down. Mm-hmm. That's one of my ways.
I love that.
I think it's important. Great. Yeah. I love that our conversation doesn't sound kumbaya. I think a lot of times when you try to have a conversation about building culture, building team, having community, all the fun things you should do, it doesn't always have to be fun. It can be constructive. And what I heard you say earlier, I want to lean into is investing in the team with the things they want or need. And you have to know, to build trust takes time, but you have to know what they need. So talk to us a little bit about that exercise of you walk into a business, whether it's at the brand level or the store level, and you need to build community, build trust, build culture. Talk about the individual investment that has to be made with that line level team member, whether it's dishwasher to next step, server to bartender to shift lead to GM. Talk about what that takes and what you have to do.
You have to get to know them as a person. It's humans. I mean, so it's getting, what do you like? What are your strengths? What are things you want to learn? But also, how many kids do you have? What do you like to do besides work? It's building that rapport and that trust from the beginning. It takes extra effort. People I watch walk into restaurants leadership, they'll walk in, they walk out. I know some of us already know you have to say hi to everybody when you walk in and bye to everybody before you leave, but also high-fiving them on the way out. You got to go back and sometimes wash the dishes and make sure that their area is functioning. They have one of the toughest jobs in the restaurant. Is the sprayer working? Is the machine working? Sometimes it's squirting water at them and they're not saying anything every time they do dishes. We need to fix that. We need to own that. And that's a conversation then with the GM. But I do think moving around the restaurants and getting to know the team is super important on a first name basis. Sitting down, that's the most important, is building those relationships up first, and then you can start building some standards in there. I do think while you're doing that, it is important to state the mission and vision of what the restaurant needs or what the goal is of our business. In our business, it's human connection, where we have technology and things, but it's to support a human connection, not to actually replace one. I think some of the technology is trying to do some of that right now. You see some of that in the industry. but we want people to come in and leave just smiling on the way out, whether it takes an extra glass of wine or, you have some concepts, not saying anything bad, but they always give a birthday cake. Well, what if that person does how do you have that conversation of, I just got back from Brazil, or I just got back from California, Ventura, and I want, and I want a beer. Give them a beer, really actually feel them out, or bring them a paella, or just hang out with them. Right. And so it's really getting to know them, but you gotta make sure your team members are taken care of first so that they'll take care of the guests. Sounds like an, old saying, but it really is true. And one of the things I think a lot of companies do is they've got this script that every team member needs to say. How about just let them be their authentic self? Give them some decision rights to make decisions at the table and with their guests. Hey, you know what? This person was having a bad day. Give them a bag of fries. We don't care. How do you make that connection? And nowadays, people are they're cutting back on where they're spending, recent data shows. So now you really do have to become the restaurant of choice, or you're out. So you got to make sure you're methodical about it.
Yeah, I always say recognition is the game. And if it doesn't start with the employee, if you can't recognize your employee, if you don't know them, if you can't recognize their interests, their wants, their desires, their goals, and you can't invest in them, why would they do it for your guests?
And why would they stay with us?
And if they have the warm and fuzzies, they're going to give the warm and fuzzies. And I love what you said, using technology to empower them to spend more time. I've always said this, give your team the tools. Not a script. I love the bullet points, but look, I'm not going to go broke if you give some fries or you do something nice for them. You hear something and you recognize that moment, or you hear something negative and you don't need to, let me ask my manager is the worst phrase in the industry. Don't ever say that. That's the worst thing you can do, because it says, I don't have trust. I'm not allowed or empowered to make decisions that are common sense. What would you want if you were a guest in that moment? I would want somebody to notice or listen or spend some time, or if you hear me going over the tourist itinerary, go say, hey, I know this really cool bar. I know this really cool thing, give those local insights or the suggestions of how you would even have that dish.
Yeah.
I love that too. You know what I do? I modified. I do this. I put some garlic chips on it, whatever. I love all of that. So again, not kumbaya, very surgical ideas. Amy, last question. What are you looking forward to? What's on the horizon for Amy to help you do what you're trying to do with Barcelona Wine Bar and make it differentiate, make that experience unique, make it the brand of choice, the local place of choice? What are you here at NRA looking at, thinking about, and looking to do?
Gosh, that's a good question. And it's listening to others. Like yesterday, we were at the Gal Union with the Brazilian Restaurant Association, and it's just learning how different people are doing different things and enhancing the guest experience. Also what they're doing to retain their team. So looking for those tips, or the technology on the floor. I love some of this technology. And then I'll say to the vendor, okay, have you trained anyone in the trade to actually know how to fix this crazy new fryer you guys create? And it's like, okay, we're a few years out, but we'll get there, right? So it's all the things. Also connecting with so many other people that are walking by and hanging out right now by the booth. But it's also just connecting with others, because we're all in the industry. We all are, heads down doing what we need to do, but it's fun to come together and see everybody. I do want to give one plug though. So Troy's going to be on the Lead podcast coming soon. We do run a nonprofit with a couple others in the Gleam network, but the Lead program is solely focused on emerging leaders like Troy and myself, the group in the industry, getting mentors, coming to conferences where they can connect with C-suite. They may be a server, they may be a bartender, they may be a captain. So we're looking forward to having you on there too.
Well, thank you. And I will say that personally, I've made my donation. I will not be getting on the spin bike hosted
But maybe you can yazzle and yoga.
There's a lot of things. I hear there's shots. I hear there's a lot going, but there's this great event. Jeff Alexander from Wow Bao and Let Us Entertain You is if you didn't know, a spin instructor. He leads this great
one of his many hidden talents.
Yes, exactly. I refuse to sweat and throw up on.
You're gonna come and have a mimosa and have a great time.
But just write the check. Just go to Lead and write a check. But no, I appreciate, Amy, that you founded this, that you're focused on not only at the brand, at your store level, the selfish piece of my business doing better, but that you're actually developed something so that you can give back. And by the way, if you're a restaurant operator, executive, leader, if you don't bring some line level staff within your stores to a show like the National Restaurant Association show, you are missing out on showing people a path and expressing to them how big our industry is, how professional our industry, how advanced our industry is, and how many people are dedicated to getting better. Show your people what is possible. Don't just
We're
be like,
the best industry.
I'm going to Chicago
Yes.
in a few days, right?
So we're super sexy and cool.
We can be very sexy and cool like Amy Hom. Amy, thank you for coming on
Thank you
Pineapple
for having me,
Perspective.
Troy.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to the Pineapple Perspective. If you loved today's episode, leave a review and a 5-star rating. I look forward to welcoming you back next time.